everyone. Today we have with us Miss Jasmine Singh Bahl. Miss Jasmine has 18 years of experience as a category manager and lead buyer within the beauty and women's apparel space. She is currently working as vice president for FMCG with Lazada in Singapore. Prior to that, she was general manager at Landmark Group, where she was lead buyer and product and brand strategist for beauty and personal care for the lifestyle format. Before this, she had worked as marketing manager for India's lead ethnic women's wear brand W. Ms. Jasmine has done her post graduation from National Institute of Fashion Technology and has done her graduation on economics honors from Delhi University. She is skilled in brand management, product strategy, and pricing strategy. As well, she is passionate about all things beauty with a deep interest in understanding consumer behavior. Thank you, Ms. Jasmine, for taking time out to speak with us today and for agreeing to share some of your insights.
Thank you, Avni. Privileged to be here to be able to, speak and connect with intelligent and driven women like you. Thank you for a very generous introduction. Happy to help and, take you along with the journey that I've had in my, brief career. Let me know how can I help.
Thank you. Can you share with us what inspired you to pursue this career? Like, how did your growing up journey influence this decision?
Well, okay, let's take a path down the the memory lane, and I am a product of my father's entrepreneur and my mother's a psychologist. So, what I saw around the house, one was a big inspiration. But just to talk about, what was to address your question, I've always been drawn to understanding people, what they chose, what influences them, and how emotions kind of shape decisions. I was obviously very curious about patterns of what people do, what they bought, what was aspirational, what was the need versus want. But slowly, this curiosity kind of developed into a passion for consumer behavior. While obviously, as a young girl, I didn't set out to think that I want to be in fashion or retail, but I wanted to be in somewhere which was in the intersection of business, a bit of creativity, and human psychology. Like I said, I'm a product of a businessman and a psychologist. I learned by things around me that to always be observant, adaptable, and very key, and something that I'm sure you are as well, be highly ambitious, and that all of these components kind of transpired me to be here where I am.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think it makes sense how much family plays a role into what we become. So, how did you
True.
prepare yourself for this career? Is there anything like you would do differently with the benefit of hindsight?
Okay. So, well, like I said, and I continue to remain highly ambitious and to deliver value in whatever I do. I started with working on really strong fundamentals, which was understanding business, the ecosystems as well, analytics and strategy. But what like has kept me, loving my job and delivering constant value wherever I've gone is to be constantly curious, asking questions, taking on roles that kind of stretched me. I always was, I was synonymous or rather notorious for doing a hand raiser for the toughest projects. So I think that's what helped me, the bandwidth of doing different varied projects at a cross-sectional level beyond my written scope that kind of prepared me. But if I could do something differently, maybe I would start building on my network and my personal brand much earlier. While definitely, skills matter, knowledge matters, but visibility, relationships kind of accelerate growth. And I would also tell myself not to wait to feel ready and to say that most growth happens when you take on new things and do these hand raiser for difficult projects. So maybe that's one thing that I would possibly, go back in time and start much earlier.
That makes sense. So, you would say push yourself even harder than you are right now.
Yes, yes, yes. And take on projects that are beyond your comfort level or you believe your scope or your, let's say, educational background is. So just to give you a sense, I worked on, incentives schemes for sales professional when I was at Lifestyle. So, although this is something which I mean, mostly human resources kind of comes into play, but because it was linked to an end goal, that is how my department did or how my department's performance mattered. I did a hand raiser and kind of value added to that, that how do we set the right targets and how do we kind of gratify them for what kind of metrics. So that was one thing that I believe, if there was one takeaway from my career graph, would be to, do hand raisers for different kind of projects. Do not hesitate on collaborating and learning as you go along. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. You won't learn your entire potential until you keep trying and pushing yourself.
very wise. Yes.
So you graduated in economics and then made a transition towards fashion and retail management. What led to this transition and how did you make it?
So economics definitely gave me a strong foundation in understanding markets, decision making, and the broad framework of strategy and business at large, which could be then applied to any industry. But like I mentioned to you, I wanted to be in an industry that was consumer facing, that was fast paced and dynamic, and that led me to, therefore the end outcome of, what were the most dynamic and consumer facing industries at the time that I was looking out was naturally fashion and retail. It felt like the perfect space where strategy, and creativity both were satiated. I was able to analyze trends. I was able to drive them, and I leaned into this opportunity, stayed open, and then build relevant experiences. I moved from brand management to a pure play offline retailer, and then now a digital commerce marketplace.
So your field and career came entirely out of like an interdisciplinary mix of your interests.
Yes, completely. So I definitely wanted a career space that was evolving, that did not stagnate, where someone's value, or particularly my value, came from my core advantages of being adaptable, curious, and eager to, prove myself. So yeah.
Yeah, that I think that would help a lot of girls who are very confused about which field they want to go into. And like this is proof you can mix all of your interests together and find a suitable job for it. So, what were your expectations from this career when you first decided to pursue it? And has it lived up to those expectations? What would be your advice to young girls who might consider a career in this space?
Well, like I said, I wanted something fast paced, but sometimes the pace outpaces me as well. So that's about expectation versus reality. But yeah, I did think that, with retail and fashion, it's going to be glamorous and all the fun moments. But yeah, those are definitely exciting. But what happens behind is, intensity, the pace, the constant need to solve for problems, the constant flips and changes. Because you know what, in my career, I've gone through two recessions already, and then there is COVID as well. So I think in terms of expectations versus reality, what really happened. I think I've had my fair share of challenges, and I that's kind of made my experience fairly rich. But if there's an advice that I could give to, your audience pool that's kind of listening to us, is that A, chase learning. Second, something maybe, your other fellow podcast speakers that came there, is that, to be resilient. Because you know what, whichever industry you do, and with your workforce coming into, active play, the things have changed so much. The traditional jobs are no longer going to be there. So it's going to be more fast paced, high pressure jobs, ever evolving. Therefore, being resilient and being curious kind of addresses both of them, because, with the influx of AI, what new jobs are going to look like, what your value add is going to look like, is going to be completely different. And not to say that it's gloom and doom for your generation or for the working professions right now, but I think what one thing we can all strive, and something that I need to remind myself, is to continue to value add and upskill myself, and back yourself, and always back yourself. Don't look out for only a mentor or a boss, or your close set of well-wishers to back yourself. Have enough horsepower behind yourself to back yourself, and that will only come if you're confident about your skills. You know that this project or this job, you've got it, and no one can do it better than you. So yeah, those would be my humble advice.
So basically, confidence and resilience are
Yeah,
important.
confidence is And yeah, not to say blind confidence to say I got it, but this confidence has to be strategically built by the choice of projects that you would do. How would you prepare yourself for something that could only happen from experience on job, as well as how you upskill yourself. But and that again would come back from the diverse projects that you would end up doing. So there is no shying away from hard work or putting in the hours in terms of diversity of experience and in terms of depth of projects. Only that can prepare you for confidence in your job.
Yeah. Upskilling yourself, especially in a world so full of AI and technology, is really important. And experience teaches you best as well, I'm sure. So,
True.
what does your typical workday look like? And what are the problems that you solve for as part of your job?
So my current job spans around 6 different countries within Southeast Asia. And like I said, e-commerce as an industry faces a lot of challenges because you know what? Unlike a physical store where the space is limited, you can only house X number of brands or X number of things. Online, you are maxed to, your abilities. And therefore, my job is to constantly deal with how do I let the brands that I work with or the platform that I work on be relevant on a continuous basis. How do I shape the strategy which is particular to that particular country? While we call the region Southeast Asia, it is not homogeneous. And how do I make and therefore adaptability and personalize each brand's offering to that particular country and that particular consumer set, constantly building on engagement and making sure that the organization that I work with is relevant for those brands, and internally collaborating with tech teams and product teams on innovations that can set out my brands and the platform closer to the consumers. So my core job, if I have to put it in a nutshell, it is to create meaningful growth both for the consumer as well as the brands that I work with.
That sounds really hectic, but interesting.
Yes.
So, which part of your job gives you the most satisfaction, and which part would you like to change if you could?
I think what gives me the most satisfaction is when something moves from like an idea to a drawing board to actually a project and seeing the results. So seeing the journey of a of a thought and end to end from a thought strategy to operations. That's the entire life cycle of it is what gives me the most excitement and satisfaction, and that's what drives me the most. Because, like I said, the ecosystem is so diverse. And again, we're in the middle of a bit of a slowdown. So how do you create value without over investing? I think that gives me the lot of personal satisfaction and value for my time. But the flip side is because it works so fast and things change so rapidly. What I wish or something that I could change is a bit of time to pause and reflect on. I wish I had that because I believe creating time for reflection is what will create lasting value, even for myself and the stakeholders that I work with. Those are things I wish I could, possibly, I wish I could create more time for reflection.
That makes sense. Being in a fast-paced industry is as fun as it is chaotic. So, can you please
Yes.
share with us how challenging it is for you to find the right work-life balance, given you have a busy work schedule that requires you to travel while raising a family as well? Do you have any advice for young upcoming women professionals based on your experience in this regard?
Well, I can share what I do, but at no point of time I can ever take 100% credit for driving a work-life balance or boasting of having one. But I definitely try. I live by the mantra that good cannot come in the way of perfect. So I make strides to make the life of the unit, like me and my family, good, but I do believe I might be far from perfect. And therefore, I've kind of let go of the, idea of perfection. But if I was to speak to you about what do I do, is I'm pretty intentional with my time, whether it's at work or when I am with my family. I'd like to do things that, I can be 100% present and divide my time in buckets and kind of separate it out. So wherever I am, either at work or at home, I am able to deliver the best version of myself without compromising on the other. So one is that, but again, this is easier said in words than done. I lean hugely on a support system, which is my husband and my extended family. I share with them just the way how we share at work, our shared plans, shared goals, and shared visions. I share it transparently with my family as well, so that they know that I'm leaning on them as well, and we jointly come together. Just how at work as well, you come together to see, a lot of people come together to see a project come to its life. Same way at home as well, I lean a lot. I kind of prepare myself and my family in case I need to over index time somewhere. um, but largely, I am kind of fairly intentional with my time at home and at work. And I never shy of, just like at work, at home as well. I never shy feel shy in terms of taking help, stating out where am I at, what are my priorities, where am I struggling. So I think that's the way I am going. And like I transparently shared, there isn't really any perfect or a balance, but yeah, I try.
So time management and being open are like the most important things towards achieving that kind of balance.
Sure, I think that's the core of it. You summarized it perfectly.
Do you believe that being a woman gives you an edge in your role? And as one would believe that most of your customers would be women as well.
Yes, it does give me an intuitive understanding of how the consumer behavior is, but it is only that's only a part of it. Not to say that I haven't worked with great male bosses or peers or support team people in my team who haven't delivered value. Irrespective of that, yeah, it does give you an edge in terms of intuitive understanding of the business, and it kind of overlaps with that. But I think as a woman, not in this, what gives me, I think, the drive that I think women have when they decide to, take on projects. I believe maybe that's what sets me apart from being a consumer of the same products. I think that sets me apart. But I do see over time these gender roles kind of blurring, and it comes down to your exposure, your readiness, and your appetite for hunger versus just a particular gender.
So the skill set matters more than whether you're a man or a woman.
Yes, I do not. Yeah, I think we are in times where I believe gender roles are kind of blurring, and we aren't really. I do not believe that just as because I'm a woman, I was hired for this job.
That's good. I think, like you said, it's important that men and women, like the roles aren't as separate. We're equally capable of the same things.
Yes, yeah, I do not believe that me being a woman would either enable or disable me from a leadership role at this point of time. I think it's the bandwidth of work that me or much other women in the industry are going to do that is going to stand for their ability to perform well in a role.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would be your message to your younger self that the young girls in our audience could benefit from as well?
I think I would reinforce some of the things that I'm doing would be to stay curious, would be to, back myself and not wait for the right time when I believe I would be ready, but to just back myself up and to stay curious and be eager to perform for oneself, for one's own learning, and not for, anything beyond that. So I would reinforce to, keep my growth as the nucleus of this entire for my, for my being, and do things that would kind of value add to me first, uh, and lead with that. Engage and be mindful with your time, which would value add back to you, and keep that as the center focus, and not to get frayed by the things that will come alongside. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. That I think a lot of people would benefit from that advice, especially curiosity, because that's the only way you'll discover what you truly want to do or your passions in life.
True.
Yeah, I think that was all of the questions. Thank you so much for your time, Miss Jasmine.
Thank you, Avni. Thank you for having me. And if I can ever be of more value, happy to do that and pitch in. It's great to see you, asking such questions and maybe making your own vision board as you go along. And I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.